Hello, 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 and welcome back. Hello, Ariel. Hello, Hybrid. How are we doing?
How's it going? I'm doing great.
Actually,
looking forward to it.
Yeah, first of all, thank you very much for joining, Hybrid. For taking the time, and I think we have a lot of to discuss today. Absolutely.
Yeah, absolutely. For those who don't know, Hybrid is a developer. He knows about Unreal Engine and more. I just uploaded a video sharing one of his mods with Silent Hill 2, and actually I was very impressed. I mean, the improvement is massive with that mod. So I have a lot of questions for him, and maybe he can help us learn a little bit or share some documents, some information, and how we can improve games by ourselves. Games that maybe don't have a mod from him or from anyone else.
Sounds good. So this Silent Hill 2 mod, what you did, was this the one where you remove fog and stuff like that?
No, I didn't remove fog or anything in my mod. There are mods that do that though. If you're
because I saw something where the fog was removed and people were outraged, and I was just, come on, calm down. It's a mod. You don't have to install it. It's just to show, what is possible. Oh my god. Okay.
Yeah, there's a mod called Sunny Hills that not only does it remove the fog, but it makes the game look real sunny. And there's a lot of people that don't like that mod either.
Yeah, okay, but again, it's a mod. You don't need to like it. It's just for anyway. You want to say something about your mod? What you have done?
I basically I like to make my mods very modular, which means that you get to pick and choose what you want. Like there's a ton of options, probably too many options for a lot of people. But as an accessibility advocate and specialist, I make presets for every single anti-aliasing and upscaler type. So if you download the mod, you'll see DLSS, FSR, TSR, FXAA, no anti-aliasing. And I fine-tune the values for each of those methods for what would be best for those, like the sharpness amount, the roughness, map biases, things like that, to get the perfect balance of aliasing and quality and sharpness and all that.
So it's basically picture improvement and performance improvement.
The performance improvement is, I didn't intend for it to be improved performance. I just intended for it to not hurt performance, but I ended up improving performance a little bit, because the thing is that the fog is so close to the camera, but they're rendering things out further away from the screen that you can't see. So I lowered the render distance slightly right at the moment where things would start to disappear, and then I kept it there. So
cool.
Yeah, I think that's the best. You should definitely do that, because we have, with this mod, we have, like he's saying, a specific modification for each upscaling. And also, not only that, if you go with DLSS, you have one for quality, for ultra quality, balance, because you're using the DLSS tweaks, I guess. So did you also change the sharpness values and tweak everything for those two, for each one of those?
Yeah, so when I said modular, that it even includes just for each upscaling value, like ultra quality. So what I did is I tried equalizing the sharpness between every upscaler and every preset, so that that's not a factor you have to worry about when you're choosing what you want to use. Just pure image quality you can focus on. So yeah, sharpness is boosted slightly as you lower down. I only boosted it by 0.5%, because anything more than that would have produced artifacts.
Well, I think you did a great job, because I tried the ultra performance mode and the quality, and I see that the sharpness, the clarity is similar, that you were trying to look for the same level of clarity. And I think you did a great job. I mean, it looks so much better. I can say that the performance mode with DLSS performance 2 looks more clear than when you just open the game with DLSS quality. The clarity looks more. It looks better, basically. So yeah, it's definitely what we need.
Yeah,
So,
it's
the first comment already, or not the first comment, but one of the comment, and this is what we like to talk about, or a little bit more in detail today. Too many stutters in every Unreal Engine 5 game. So is this something, Hybrid, where you can explain a couple of things, what we seeing in most of the games? Because I think we're talking about two different stuttering, shader compilation or maybe traverse stuttering. Can you maybe go a little bit more in detail and tell us what this is exactly?
Well, it depends on the cause of the stutter, but a big cause is obviously shader compilation, which everyone knows. But that can be fixed if you find all the shaders in your games and pre-compile them at startup. But of course, that could take a while to compile. You could also have them like be compiling like in the background as you're playing the game, so you can jump right in it. But then that could lower performance. There's also asset streaming and loading. There's garbage collection. There's what's it called? There's texture streaming. Texture streaming is like one of the biggest ones. Is where instead of having all the textures just like loaded in instantly, you stream in certain amounts, and sometimes the amount they stream in is too much for like your VRAM amount. So a lot of the times when I do fix stuttering in games, it's texture streaming, because that's the only one you can actually fix with like Engine.ini commands. So that's the big one I focus on.
But what is that you do to fix that? You don't have to lower the quality of the textures or the resolution to fix that.
Well, what I do is if you have enough VRAM, I will just disable texture streaming entirely, so all the textures will load in, because having them stream in can reduce performance. But if you don't have a lot of VRAM, or the game consumes a lot in general, then I'll lower the pull size of the textures. Not like I won't just like lower it to 1 and you just call it a day and everything's super soupy, but like I'll lower it like just enough to get a smoother performance. I did this for Power World. I had a mod for Power World because they had texture streaming issues, and people were able to play the game, especially on the Steam Deck, because you know how little VRAM it has.
But I don't understand, Hybrid. So if this is so, you're talking about an ini file, or where you just change a little setting, or inside the game. Everybody don't just correct me if I'm wrong, but everybody can open in theory the game or the ini file and change it when he knows what it's doing. Why are the developer not testing their games better in this case? What's going on? Or they're just playing on the latest 5090 and they don't experiencing any texture stuttering? I don't know. It's just a little bit weird.
Well, the biggest reason is just that developers just they care mostly about console, and that's what they target. They care to some extent about PC. It's a big market, but they don't really test a wide range of hardware, though. They base the hardware they test is the hardware they have in their PCs, and those typically don't have issues because they're high-end GPUs.
Yeah, I get this, but usually you have a minimum configuration, from the game developer. So you have to have this, I don't know, AMD 6700 XT GPU at minimum. So why they're not testing this with this setup then, to make sure it's running at the minimum specs perfectly or almost perfectly? So I think there's a lot of, we talked about this on this channel so many times, I think there's a little bit of a quality control issue as well, and maybe timing issue, because, they need to release the game, of course. What is your take on that?
Well, the thing is that developers do want to fix this issue, but we have directors and management that are in charge of what we do. We can't do whatever we want. And the truth is that like things like this, they're like, this is not prioritized. It's not what's important to the people above that call the shots. Like, because they know most people aren't going to not buy a game because of stutters, right?
Yeah, of course. Yeah.
The average consumer. And also, we don't typically have like a wide range of GPUs. What we typically do is we'll definitely have like an AMD and a NVIDIA GPU on standby, for their own technologies. You know, they sponsor a lot of games and stuff, but what we typically do is look at relative performance, and that's how we determine our minimum specs. And that's why the minimum and recommended specs are always so awful in games, because we don't actually even test that hardware.
Okay. I mean, I can understand you can't test all the GPUs and stuff like that, and at some point you need to rely on other stuff maybe. And of course, I understand this. If the if the manager says now we have a deadline, we have to release the game, that's it. You know, that's how it is, because the company needs to make money. I fully understand this, but sometimes you're just wondering. You know, there's a simple mod out there which fixes a lot of issues, you know, which was, I'm not saying that the mod was done in 10 minutes, but, you know, it's let's say a day work from one person. And you should think that a big development studio should be able to do that, you know, in less time. But sometimes it's not the case. It's just interesting topic.
Like my question is, for example, Hybrid, if you were part of the team that developed Silent Hill 2, I know that there's a bureaucracy in a process to fix things, but do you think, you know, that all the fix that you did with the mod, don't you think that you would be able to say, hey, you know, I know how to fix some things here, this is not great? They would say, no, we don't care, let's just leave it like that? Or they would actually let you fix the game and make it better?
Well, everyone has their own department and roles. So I wouldn't be stepping outside of my role, because the thing about the game industry is that people aren't passionate because it kind of beats the passion out of you, because it's not a very pleasant place to be working. I mean, I can't speak for every game studio. Like the people that made Silent Hill 2, they could have had great working conditions and they could love their jobs. I don't know. But a lot of people don't do more than what they have to do, because it doesn't pay you more for that, for working harder, unfortunately. And you know, if you have a fix and you know you're friends with everyone there, you're friends with your colleagues, and they're in their own department, you could bring that fix to them for sure and tell them about it. And you know, if it doesn't take a long time to implement, you could do it. Obviously, if it's something major, it would need QA tested, and that's something management would have to consider allowing, of course. Like if you try to fix, I don't know, like you tried changing the LUTs of the game to improve the black levels, and that could be something that causes issues for other departments that are working on the color grading. So
yeah, of course, understand.
There's a lot of things to consider.
Yeah, it's not that simple, of course, when we're looking at the full picture. I'm pretty sure, you know, because I can just speak for myself here, but I don't have much of experience, of course, when it comes to that, or almost zero experience. But sometimes you're just wondering, hey, that was a simple fix. Why are they not doing this? And we need to be fair here as well. I mean, we see patches coming to games, of course, after the release as well. So it's not that they are shutting down after that, you know, don't care anymore. But sometimes you just have the feeling, you know, maybe a week longer, you know, just bake the cake a little bit better, you know. But yeah.
Let me ask you, Hybrid, about the texture streaming issues that you were mentioning. Let me see if I have a better idea of what you're saying. So the way I understand how games work with CPU, RAM, GPU, and all of that is you have information on your drive that goes to either the GPU or the RAM, and it goes in chunks. Like, for example, sometimes you might see, if you have 16 gigabytes of RAM, you might see that the game is using 9 gigabytes or 8. But if you have 32, you might see that the game is using more than 16. And you might wonder, why is the game with the same settings using more RAM if I actually have more RAM? Because probably the amount of information is on a chunk. Like if you cannot fit the entire chunk, then you don't copy that. Let's say 4 gigabytes of information. You don't copy that. You just leave it there, and that might cause a stutter, either in RAM or GPU. Is that what you were referring to? That you would reduce the size of that chunk so you can have more ready, so it causes less stutters? Is that what you were referring to?
Well, that's not a horrible summary, but what I would say is that it dynamically loads textures into memory based on what's visible to the player, rather than just keeping them all in memory at once, because it helps manage memory usage better. And I do reduce the size of that because a lot of games it's larger than what it really needs to be. Like in Hogwarts Legacy, I could reduce that by about 15%, not really lose any sharpness in the textures, and I could improve stuttering, because the game runs on like the Series S, which has like a very low VRAM amount. But if you use the same VRAM amount on PC, the game's like unplayable. It doesn't make any sense. It's something they could have fixed, but they weren't very considerate about it, unfortunately. And so, mods.
Sorry, but I'm not sure I'm getting what is that you're reducing.
The size of basically I'm reducing like how the amount of textures that are allowed to be streamed in at once, basically.
Oh, I see. So you're saying it might not be necessary to stream that much texture at once because you cannot see it on the view.
Correct. Or the difference is negligible, but the performance benefits are substantial.
So you might see a little bit more popping, maybe, if you reduce that amount?
Sometimes it doesn't. Typically, it doesn't. If it's really low, it could manifest as popping. But if you're just reducing it a little bit like me, it's just that the textures aren't as detailed, but you don't really notice it, though.
Oh, okay.
Okay, let's talk about traversal stutter. So first of all, maybe you can explain what is it exactly and why are we seeing this in almost every, and correct me again if I'm wrong, in almost every Unreal Engine game, but not in Fortnite. Or maybe it's present in Fortnite as well. I'm not sure.
Maybe a little bit, but obviously, like every game has their own like levels of stutter. There's very few games that don't have like any stutter at all, but yeah, they all have their own different stutters. So traversal stutter can actually be caused by your own hardware, of course, but one of the biggest issues is asset streaming for traversal stutter. So if you as you're moving through the game, the engine will dynamically so it's like a combination of everything. It's not like a specific thing. So like traversal stutter could be shader compilation, because as you're traversing, new shaders load in. So that's traversal stutter. It could be texture streaming and asset streaming, because as you move through the game, assets load in. That could cause stutter. It could be your disk and IO performance. So that's basically what traversal stutter is. It's like a bunch of different forms of stutter that only occur when you're moving through the game world.
Yeah. Are we seeing less traversal stutter on console than on PC because of the same hardware on the PlayStation, or is it the same amount, or is it just different maybe?
It's less because shaders are precompiled, so you're eliminating one element of traversal stutter on console, and
so that's
they also optimize it. Yeah. They also optimize it for the VRAM, so texture streaming tends to not be an issue either.
So why are the shaders already compiled on the PlayStation or console version? What is the difference to the PC?
Well, shaders have to be compiled for like every specific configuration, and it's a confined, defined hardware. It's the same; it doesn't change.
Oh, okay. So that's why you can do it, of course, for the console, because it's one hardware. On the PC, we don't know. So let's do it when we start the game.
Yeah.
Well, on the PC, they can do it when they identify your hardware, like in the loading screen,
they're doing this
in the main menu or something.
In some games, it's before you start the game. You have or in the background it runs, and then you have, as he said already, terrible performance for 5 minutes or whatever. But okay. Now just to understand.
But let me ask you
that I had.
Okay, go ahead.
Would you like to go? All right. Well, so I think NVIDIA is trying to do this, but if it would be cool if like the shaders that you compile, like when you download a game, like NVIDIA and AMD, they could take those shaders from like that specific hardware and upload them to like their drivers. So like when you download the game for that specific version of the game, you already download those shaders like into your GPU, like because like there's so many people that have like this like these same configurations, and if we could all benefit from each other by like acting as like a hive mind, that would reduce stutters in games a lot.
Oh, so you're saying that people would have to share their own shaders when they're playing the game, so it's on a cloud or something, so when someone else downloads the game, they're getting that?
Because we know that, like, you know, NVIDIA and AMD test games for their driver updates. We know that they have like diagnostic stuff running in the background. If they could upload like your shader cache and with like the information of what hardware you have, then they could automatically like download it for when they upload a driver update for a game, and that could help with that. But obviously that's like a big logistical undertaking, of course, but it would be a cool idea.
Yeah, of course they would need to ask for your permission, because someone might not want to, have to upload that information because it costs them, their internet, resources.
Of course. I mean, they like my AMD drivers have like opt out stuff for like some diagnostic stuff, and I always opt out of it. So I'm sure you'd be able to do that.
Yeah, but sounds like a good idea. Let me ask you, ideally, in the future, once we have GPUs with a lot more VRAM, a lot more RAM and everything, is it possible to have, a modification to these older games where we can just have everything on the VRAM or RAM or like everything ready, so then in the future we can play these games with no stutter at all? Would something like that be possible? Like trying to future-proof these games and brute force them in the future.
You mean like
because what
titles?
No, what I mean is, like, even if we get a better GPU in the future, the game might not use it, because you're saying, this VRAM allocation and the texture streaming and all of that, it's a matter of how the developers are setting it up. So if it is set up to use 8 gigabytes of VRAM, it doesn't matter if you have 50. It's not gonna use it, and you still get the stutter.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, there's mods you can use too. It depends on the cause of stutter, but if it's asset streaming, then that's something you can fix with commands, and you could future-proof. You could just disable text streaming entirely, load it all in, and it would all be in memory, but your memory is so overkill that it just doesn't matter. That would be pretty cool.
Also, it will be on the RAM.
The asset streaming, the textures, yeah. they'd be stored there.
But let me ask you, what if we get like 64 or 128 gigabytes of RAM and then disable that streaming? Wouldn't that work right now?
Well, the textures are loaded into. What I mean is the textures are loaded into your memory, the RAM, but the texture streaming amount is like how much it offloads into your VRAM. So like the default is like 2048 megabytes, which is would be like 2 gigabytes of
I
memory.
See.
And yeah, and sometimes it's like 4,000, so 4 gigabytes, and that's quite a lot.
I see. That's why it is rare sometimes. If you have like a 12 gigabytes card, it is rare to see 11 being used or over 11, because if it cannot load those 2 gigabytes completely, it doesn't load that at all.
Yeah, it depends on resolution as well. That eats up more VRAM. 12 gigabytes for 4K can be probably tough at times, I imagine.
Okay.
Yeah. So let's try to answer this question here. So Digital Foundry showed that Silent Hill 2 stutters on PS5. At what point is a game technically performance unacceptable? If a movie I bought stuttered and dropped frames, it would be broken and I would return it. So actually a good question. So why are we accepting stuttering and bad performance in gaming? But he's right. If a movie, which is already a low frame rate, would now drop frames and even be lower at some point, I would just say, no, I'm not watching this. So good question, actually. Thank you.
It is a good question. The reason it's acceptable because we keep buying the game. Yeah, because we accept it. That's what it. That's the only reason it's acceptable. I mean, why are console games still releasing at 30 FPS when we have the hardware for 120 FPS now? Finally,
get me started on 30 FPS.
We buy the games that release at 30 FPS. Most of us, if we didn't buy those games unless they hit certain performance targets, we would have better games. But I'm not sure if it's us that are doing it specifically, but at least the average person is, who doesn't know a lot about like what's FPS,
Absolutely correct. Absolutely correct. And I'm hearing so often that, because I'm criticizing 30 FPS since I moved to OLED like crazy, and some people can't understand it because they're still using their 15-year-old LCD screen. But they only argument always what I'm hearing is, hey, with PlayStation 1, 2, 3, 4, whatever, we played 30 FPS games also, and now suddenly it's unacceptable. So I'm not using unacceptable, I'm using unenjoyable. That's what I'm using the word, because I don't like it 30 FPS, but if now a game has let's say 30 FPS and it's still dropping frames, so Silent Hill 2, even the 30 FPS mode has additional stutter, what I proved in my video. And it's annoying, because you have already a low frame rate, and then you walk a straight path or whatever, and you can see left and right, you have this, you can clearly see it, especially on OLED screens and stuff like that. So maybe some people are not very, not taking notes of this stuff, but I do, unfortunately. That's why I'm criticizing this.
What I think is, even if the majority of people don't notice that, which I don't think so, like a big stutter, everyone's going to notice that something is wrong.
Really?
But even if people didn't notice that, it is not right to sell a game that doesn't, in my opinion, it doesn't work. If it is stuttering all the time, you have a program that's not working right. I mean, it's okay if it stutters 1 or 2 times, but constant stutters, like in Silent Hill 2. I watched that Digital Foundry video. It's terrible. I haven't even played the game. I don't think it is okay for them to say, oh yeah, if people buy it and they don't notice that, it will be right, because you're selling something that doesn't work. And I wanted to ask you, at what point, when you are using Unreal Engine, let's say you are making a game, at what point you start getting stutters? Is it because you're trying to add too much polygons or too much textures? Or what is the bottleneck? Why? Because most games with Unreal Engine are stuttering, but so why is that? They are trying to do too much of what, or they are not managing it well? Like what's going on?
With like why does like Unreal Engine 5 have like more stutter than other game engines?
No, what I mean is, for example, let's say I'm doing a project on Unreal Engine, I'm learning, and I start adding trees or buildings or whatever. Like, how can I cause the stutters when I'm actually adding stuff? Is it because you add too many stuff, or is it because of the animations, or is it the textures? Like, what is it?
It's mostly the overall quality of the assets and how many assets there are that causes the most stutters, and how many shaders you have in a scene. So like if you have like just 2D billiards and stuff, like textures like that are flat, low res, they're not likely to cause any stutters. But you have like a bunch of trees which are like 3D high poly, that's much more likely to cause stutters, and also just lower performance in general, regardless of stuttering.
Because in the past, the stutters were something that of open world games, but now to see a stutter in games that are linear, that they have a closed environment, that's what's weird to me.
It is weird. With Unreal Engine, it can be worse because, I mean, first of all, there's like a lot of bugs with Unreal Engine that I know you guys wouldn't know about since you guys aren't game developers, but they don't typically like fix like these major issues. Like the reason Unity is more popular than Unreal Engine for mobile games is because Unity actually has a decent forward renderer, whereas Unreal Engine has kind of like abandoned their forward renderer. They don't even like update basic bugs about it. They're really just focusing on
Sorry,
pushing
before you
features.
continue, forward rendering, you mean full resolution everything? You don't have half resolution stuff?
Yeah, forward rendering is like you do know the difference between forward and deferred, right?
No, I don't.
Well, deferred allows you to have like more lights at like a lower cost, but the issue is that it generates more aliasing, and that's like why MSAA doesn't work anymore. And forward is better for VR because since the screen's so close to your face, things like TAA is just like causes excessive motion sickness, so developers try to avoid using it. And forward just very important for that reason. And phones are also very low resolution, so TA would look bad on that. Unreal Engine's abandoned their forward renderer. Basically, it kind of sucks. Hasn't been updated since like Unreal Engine 4, I think, like any major updates.
So it is not about the resolution of the assets. It has to do with the lighting.
The stuttering.
No, the forward render versus the deferred rendering.
Oh, yeah. And in forward rendering, like each object in the scene is rendered directly to the screen, with like all its lighting calculations happening as the object is drawn. And deferred rendering, it's different. Instead of it being like the full object, it's not, but it helps improve performance. But obviously, there's like more points, so there would be more aliasing.
Oh, let me see if I understand. So let's say you have a sphere on the screen, like the deferred rendering would render the backside that you don't see if you actually move to see the backside.
So it's called G buffers. So the scene is first rendered into multiple textures, which are called G buffers, which then stores information about each pixel, like its position, normal vector, color, material properties. And yeah, it cuts it up into chunks like that because it's more efficient, and that's why it's better. But the cons with it is that it doesn't, like, transparencies don't work, so we kind of have to like there's no built-in transparency support, so we have to handle it in different ways.
Okay.
And yes, it also does.
It's not that simple.
It's
yeah,
not
it also uses more
about
memory.
But so what I want to know is that you're saying Unreal Engine abandoned this forward rendering is deferred. This doesn't have to do with having everything being 4K or having half resolution stuff. That's not the same.
It does inadvertently, because deferred rendering is why we needed TAA, because old techniques stopped being efficient, and then once developers they started accumulating past frames for the anti-aliasing process, they realized that frame accumulation could be used for other things. So then they started using it for SSR, Lumen, everything, and now since they're already accumulating these frames, they kind of need TA to begin with. So in a way, it's kind of like that, because they realized what they could do with accumulation, which only exists because of deferred rendering, but indirectly.
I see. I kind of have a better idea now. That's what they are also using, that accumulation of frames for this new improvement with Unreal Engine 5.5 with the lights. Yeah. So they are. You told me actually that on the live stream that they are accumulating like 12 frames or something like that. So you have ghosting with that. Tell me more about that.
So obviously, the more frames you accumulate, the more temporally stable something will be, because you have more information. It's like, think of like frame accumulation, like super sampling. The higher you super sample, the more information you have, the better the image quality. The more frames you accumulate, the better the image quality, because it's like the same thing as super sampling, except instead of increasing the resolution, you're just using past information instead of rejecting it. But the problem is with super sampling, you decrease performance. With accumulation, you increase ghosting, you can increase blur. So there's other trade-offs, either image quality or performance. Pick your poison. And 12 frames is a lot of frames. And yeah, Megalights is ghosting like crazy. It's to the point that it's like almost unacceptable. And I'm sure it's so bad that I'm sure they're going to improve it before they officially release it. But I just hope. I really hope that it's improved, though, for sure.
So, and this is the weird thing, because I just saw this video about, I think it was also from Digital Foundry or whatever, from this Mega Lights or whatever the new name is, and it does look, wow, it does look fantastic. But of course, we're talking now about a YouTube video, maybe recorded in whatever quality, and I haven't seen this on my 65-inch TV, in the real quality, and this is where the reality hits hard sometimes, So this is, anyway. But I'm looking forward for it. I mean, it's cool to see all those new stuff coming to Unreal Engine. But I'm a little bit concerned what you said before, that they know about bugs, since Unreal Engine 4, and they never or hardly fix them. This is sometimes, maybe it's too much hassle now to fix those bugs, or maybe they need to change too much on the core engine or whatever. I don't get this, but this is actually bad, because if you going to build on a faulty engine or a buggy engine, where does it end? You know what I mean? It's not good.
And the thing is, in my opinion, they are showcasing this new technology for Unreal Engine 5.5 like something that looks better, something you should get hyped about it or something. But they are not showing you the compromise. They are not saying, hey, you have now better shadows or better ambient occlusion, but, we had to compromise, and now you have this ghosting. And they show you a screenshot of that. Because I think that's deceiving, and they shouldn't do that at all. I understand compromises are necessary. I'm okay with that. But I want to ask you, is it unreasonable now? So is it a bad idea? Because this is the idea that I have, and I'm not an expert. Let's forget about all this stuff. So basically, let's change the direction of where the graphics are going. And instead of trying to accumulate more frames and more, so we have more ghosting, let's reduce the pixels everywhere, so we have more blurry picture. We have hair that looks terrible on every single game. I don't remember a game where I can see the hair, and I don't have to put a helmet on the character, so I can play the game because the hair is so bad. Because they reduce the pixels for things that really need those pixels. Do you think it's a bad idea to say, hey, forget about all that? That was a bad idea. Let's start compromising in a different way. Let's try to add more clarity. Let's have things render in real time, okay? And we're gonna have to reduce the scope of the games. We're gonna have to, have less trees, less polygons, more closed environment or whatever, so we can have games that look, sharper, cleaner, or maybe not. Completely eliminate what we're doing now, but have that as an option, like a different way to do games.
So the first thing I'll say is that my mod actually improves the hair a little bit in Silent Hill 2, but not like the pixels or anything. Just rather it makes it less shiny. A lot of games they'll have characters like unrealistic lighting on their hair, like it's shiny. So I removed like the sheen from that a little bit. I'm not sure if you noticed, it's subtle, but other than that, the problem with focusing on like clarity and stuff in your game is if it's like an Unreal Engine game, for example, it's kind of cost prohibitive, because Unreal Engine is probably the worst game engine when it comes to forcing TA, because like you look at other game engines, Unity, Got It, CryEngine, like they have TA, but they don't really like rely on it. Like you could make a game without it, whereas Unreal Engine, like all their effects are built around TA. Like they give you the option, sure, but everything is built around it, and it's dumb, because like SSR has been solved for like with non-TA like a very long time ago, and they could obviously just add support to that and in their engine. It wouldn't be hard, but they don't do that. So in order to actually make a game without TA reliance, you would have to fight the engine. So people are hamstrung by industry standards, and obviously forking Unreal Engine and making your own version and adding all this custom stuff is cost prohibitive, and you would need improvement from like upper management to do that. And I don't think they're willing to spend that money. Of course, passionate people making like games that they really care about, their own projects, are much more likely to get that done, unfortunately. But that's kind of the problem with big companies, is the bureaucracy of them and how hard it is to get simple things done sometimes.
Oh, so you're saying cost prohibitive, not on performance. I thought you were referring to performance. You're saying it would just cost too much money. You would have to basically make your own engine.
You would either have to make your own engine, or you could fork Unreal Engine and modify it. But the reason that's a big deal is just because Unreal Engine fights you at every turn. So like one of my friends, right? His YouTube channel is Threat Interactive. He has like a crowdfunding because he wants to build his own fork of Unreal Engine 5 that removes temporal dependence and improves performance. But the goal is 900K, which is a lot of money, of course, just to make his own fork. And obviously he might not hit that goal, but I'm rooting for him. He just started his YouTube channel, and I think he already has like 12K. He has like multiple videos with like 100K views. He's doing a very good job at promoting himself, and I hope he reaches his goal because it would be awesome. And look forward to collaborating.
So he wants to make a game or just the engine and have the engine available for them or other.
Yeah, he's making a game. He hasn't released any information on it because it's not ready yet. But he wants to release the engine because like if you look at the finals, I'm not sure if you played that game or tried it, but it's pretty blurry. It has really bad TA. But one good thing about the game is that despite having like real-time lighting like Lumen, it performs super well. And that's because the finals team actually made their own little fork of Unreal Engine where they used like NVIDIA's own technology for like a similar thing to Lumen, and it's much more efficient. And that's basically what he wants to do to improve performance, but on top of image quality benefits, like getting.
This sounds fantastic. You want to put his channel name in the comment section so that people can check out his channel and maybe support?
Yeah. I wanna find that right now.
Perfect.
Yeah, and that's something that we really need. Like, also having all the games use the same Unreal Engine, they all look similar and they have the similar issues. And so I want more variety. I want a new game that comes with something completely new. Like, Digital Foundry made a video the other day of a developer that was able to have their game with a proprietary engine and ray tracing, and it is performing well and doing things different. That's what I would like to see, new stuff. But yeah, it costs a lot of money. You're talking about $1 million at least to to get started. So yeah,
look. So this is. I like to go to a couple of questions in the comment section, but I have so many more questions actually to Hybrid. But we should focus a little bit on the questions here as well, or the comments. And Isaac is writing, I really hope that PlayStation 5 Pro can make a big difference on Unreal Engine 5 games like Immortals of Avium. So my take on this is if a game is not getting better optimized for a specific hardware, or let's say like this, so if a game is just has a fixed 60 FPS mode or whatsoever, there will be no difference. It regardless what hardware you put in. If the game is broken, faulty, buggy, it is faulty, broken, buggy, full stop. They need to use then PSSR instead of FSR for the PlayStation 5 Pro to make it probably better and stuff like that. If this is not happening, then there's no difference at all.
I want to read this comment from Chris D. He says, with the Steam Deck, you can download shaders because everyone has the same hardware. It is basically like a console.
Yeah,
that's interesting. So they have something similar to what you were talking about. They are letting you.
Yeah, that's the thing with like Proton, I'm pretty sure, and then Steam Deck has a lot of the same units, same hardware. So Steam Deck benefits from that mostly. But yeah, that's actually like a feature that's built into Proton. Steam's like translation layer for DirectX and stuff.
Okay.
Yeah, it's good. That's good. Just give me a second. There was more. This is off topic, but have you guys tried streaming on OBS with RTX HDR enabled? I tried this today and it looks so weird. My character skin. I'm not quite sure what you're talking about. I tried streaming with HDR enabled for testing and it works, but I think at some point maybe my upload speed is not enough anymore. But that's a different topic here. I'm trying to do a test stream with OBS and HDR soon, but don't tell anyone. Yeah. I like to be one of the first ones. Here, this one. We don't need IR specs. They need to actually optimize their code instead. Check out Kazi Imana's optimization of Super Mario 64. Modern devs should take notice. Yes, I'm pretty sure. I mean, if they would invest more time or put more money and time in optimization, it will be much better. So this is always, I don't know. But we are not the game developer. We are not the manager. We're not the directors of companies. So that's why it's for us very simple to say, or just do it, because again, as Hybrid already said, he's doing his job. And if he's told to do that, then he's doing that, and probably he knows about issues, but it's not his job. And this is in every job, my job as well. I know about a couple of things, outside my role, but they are not my role. You can mention them maybe once or twice, but that's it. You will not have any chance to change it. But yeah, what's your opinion? Should they put more? I'm not quite sure about this case Emuna optimization of Super Mario.
I totally agree with that. Everyone knows that there are some games on your own, their own PC or PS5 that look better than others. So when you see a game, basically ask yourself, what's the best looking game I have on my system? All the games could look like that, Of course, depending on the scope. But when I see a game that it doesn't come even close to what I know my PC can show me, I know there's a problem.
So now that's a question. So what is the best game engine, Hybrid? What is the best game engine in terms of picture quality and performance at the same time? From what developer or what company? Well,
it's a little bit of a trick question, because obviously there's no such thing. It's about the game you want to make and what you're most efficient with. So one of my favorite engines is like Source 2, because what's it called? Half-Life Alyx is like one of the most beautiful games ever played and seen. It's a VR game, but like you can take screenshots in desktop mode and you just look at it. There's like almost no aliasing, but the lighting is gorgeous. The clarity is there. It looks photoreal, but not like photoreal in like the Unreal Engine way where it's like blurry. It's like clear and photoreal at the same time. It's just such a beautiful game. If I uploaded screenshots of it, I think you guys would agree.
But the thing is, with VR, they cannot have this blurriness. Like you're saying, you get motion sickness. It would look terrible. And with VR headsets, for example, we have the best motion clarity. The VR headsets have the absolute best motion clarity because it cannot be different. So, but why they don't have those standards of clarity just for what most people use, which is basically a flat screen? That's what I would want, that they have those standards for everything.
Well, so Source 2, it's not just a VR engine. Like Valve uses forward rendering also for like CS2. So they developed it for, I don't know why, but Valve seems to not like TA that much. They never really use it, and they are sticking to forward rendering. And they're also very innovative. So that's the problem with optimizing games, is that developers just aren't as innovative anymore. Like they're knowledgeable, but they're very rigorous. They taught what they taught, and they know what they know. And like back in the PS1 days, developers would use like all sorts of weird tricks to manipulate the console to extract a little bit more performance, because developers had more freedom. But some of my graphics programmers and stuff just like aren't on the scene anymore, and no one's came around to replace them. Like the most innovative people, in my opinion, in the gaming scene are at NVIDIA and Valve. Like Valve, for example, they created their own techniques for reducing aliasing, like this technique for authoring materials that reduce aliasing a lot. So it's like the anti-aliasing is baked into the materials, and that was really cool. I read their paper on that, and yeah, they're very innovative people. And that's why Half-Life Alyx is such a gorgeous game. But I don't really see things like that from other studios, especially if they're using Unreal.
Because it's not necessary anymore. The player anyway buys,
Would they could Valve make a game with that engine that's not VR, just for flat screens?
And to be clear, one of the reasons I think people are less innovative is because there's more public game engines now, and they don't need to make their own engine, which reduces the skill ceiling. Because obviously Unreal Engine has come a far way. More people are using it than ever. And to answer your question, is they can and they have. So like CS2 is a game, but because it's a competitive game, they have to boost shadows and stuff for visibility. So it's not like super pretty, just because they have to worry about visibility, but it is still really gorgeous in my opinion, even with that factor. They also have this other game called it's in beta right now, I forgot its name, Deadlock. That's like Source 2, I'm pretty sure. So yeah, they use it for 2D games as well.
So that's no
Okay, cool.
TAA. They look clear. No blurriness.
Yep.
No ghosting. No.
They use FXAA, CMAA2, and MSAA. I heard because people were requesting things like DLSS and stuff, so I think they might add it in an update. But the game engine isn't dependent on that stuff.
Nice. So I'm gonna check them out for sure.
So we have a lot of comments after we started talking about 30 FPS and stuff like that. And this one is a good one. So 24 FPS on a CRT back. So I grew up in Germany. We had PAL games. So PAL was for the European region, and it was, so we had 50 hertz back then, or still 50 hertz. So that means we had actually 25 FPS games, or 50 FPS games. And 25 FPS games, so NTSC version, so for America was always 30 FPS or 60 FPS, if the game engine was capable of doing it, of course. But I literally had back then, I no issues to playing 25 FPS games. But the reason is probably because, first of all, we're talking about a small CRT TV. The biggest CRT TVs back then, I think, was 32-inch. Correct me if I'm wrong. And of course, now we're talking about 65, 80, whatever, 100-inch TVs, and you're sitting very close to TVs to have a cinema feeling. And of course, it's a different impression. I think it's just completely different, because I can also play easily Nintendo Switch games on my Nintendo Switch OLED, because the screen is so little and small, and the 30 FPS don't bother me much. But as soon I'm going to play the same game on my OLED TV, it's a big nightmare. So, and we have a lot of comments like this,
Yeah.
So the display is very important, the size and stuff like that.
Yeah, it's like the further away you are from like your TV, the less bad it is, because your eyesight, gets worse. Like it can't pick up a lot of detail. So like the stuttering gets blended. I mean, not the stuttering, but like the judder, the choppiness of 30 FPS gets blended slightly. And it's the same thing with like, smaller displays or sitting further away.
Yeah, it's pixels per degree of view. It matters a lot. But I also want to say, I don't know about interlace. I've never tried that, because I don't think modern GPUs support interlace resolutions. So I don't know how that looks, or if
it looks pretty good.
Looks pretty good. Okay. Well, I don't know how that works for 30 FPS content, but on CRTs, plasmas, basically when you have a strobing, the frame rate has to be equal to the hertz. So if you have 60 hertz, 30 FPS is gonna look double. So you're gonna get double images. It's not gonna be great. So 30 FPS or 24 FPS on plasmas, it looks bad too. The thing with plasmas is that plasmas can have 24 hertz with 24 FPS. So it looks better than with a sample and hold display, but you have a stutters with 24 FPS or 30. It's too low of a frame rate. You have stutters. So even if you have low persistence or lower persistence with a plasma, 24 hertz, 24 FPS, it still looks like this. There's no way around it. You need more frames. So yeah, just wanted to clarify that.
So this comment here, Unreal Engine 5.5 is a lot better, but these games come out years and years later with 4 or 5 dev cycles now, year dev cycles now. So is there any, what is the latest version of Unreal Engine 5.52, or what was the latest? And is there any game with this latest already?
No, well, 5.5 is a preview, so no developer is going to use that. Maybe like small developers. The latest public release is like, last time I checked was 5.4.2. And games, they're developed for a while, so they don't ship with the latest versions that have some of the stutter improvements. The only games that like really have that are like Fortnite, because they update their games a lot. So they're always using the latest. Sometimes they even use it before it's publicly available.
But they need to do it. That's their baby,
Yeah, they like using that as like a tech demo almost. And so developers will ship with lower versions that have like graphical issues or performance problems that aren't necessarily fixed in later versions, but they are improved. Like stuttering is better in 5.4 than it is in 5.1, for example. That's why developers need to upgrade their version engine.
That's what I was going to ask you. can they, for example, Star Wars? I forgot the name again. I just installed it.
Jedi? Outlaws of
Jedi,
Jedi?
Jedi Survivor. Can they just update the Unreal Engine there to fix the stuttering? Like, can they fix it? Because
to improve it, they can, but it wouldn't be a fix. They still have to do work themselves. But if the question is, can they update it though? And that's yes, because there are games that literally update from Unreal Engine 4 to 5, you know, and that's post launch. Like Dead by Daylight came out in like what 2015. It was on Unreal Engine 4, and like a couple months ago, they just updated to Unreal Engine 5, and they didn't even do it for any sort of like performance reason or anything like that. They just did it because they just wanted to do it. It didn't really have that much advantages, maybe workflow efficiency being on the latest version. But yeah, they did that from 4 to the latest version of 5, you know. So if you're already on 5, of course you could update. I mean, it would take about 2 weeks of testing and maybe a little bit of QA to do.
No, I wonder a game like Batman Arkham Knight, which it was a mess when at launch, but right now that game looks absolutely incredible. I don't think what would happen. That's like Unreal Engine 3, I think. What would happen if they update that? Would it start stuttering and be a mess, or would actually be better?
Well, what version, what engine does it run on? Like Unreal Engine 3?
I think it's Unreal Engine 3.
Yeah, you can upgrade from 4 to 5 because they just added, like, because like Unreal Engine 5, the difference between that is that they added new features like Nanite and Lumen, but it's still like the underlying the same. But Unreal Engine 3 is a lot different than 5. I think it would require much more manual labor to do that. And
because it doesn't have that blurry TAA. It actually looks very sharp at 4K.
Yeah, maybe we should all start developing our games on Unreal Engine 3.
Well, it looks amazing. That's one of my favorite looking games.
Yeah. I mean, look, we had this topic already. I found that the games back then, you know, especially PlayStation 3 area, they were very, very sharp, and we had a lot of 60 FPS games on PlayStation 3 as well. And something changed over the times because some people decided to have more assets, more details in games, which, don't get me, is a good thing to have more. But then suddenly, of course, the performance goes down, and they need to find ways to improve the performance again. And I'm not sure if you watched one of my videos about Horizon Forbidden West on the PlayStation 5 when it was released. You know, it was the performance mode and also the quality mode was a picture mess. It was terrible in terms of picture quality. And I made a couple of videos and comparing this with Horizon Zero Dawn with the 60 FPS mode on a PlayStation 5, and the picture quality was much, much better, absolutely sharp, but less details, less assets on the screen. And at some point, finally, they got it to a point where it is enjoyable, I say. But this is, I have the feeling games back then had a better image quality, in my opinion.
Yeah, and I think sometimes when they remaster the game, they make it worse. For example, in my opinion, The Witcher 3, before the big update, it was running like the frame rate. The performance was better, of course. They're trying to push less the graphics. But even when you had aliasing, the image clarity was good because it was clear. I mean, it was pixels, raw pixels. Maybe we had some lower resolution stuff. But with the update, I much rather prefer the old thing, basically. So when they remake or update a game, they go with the new direction, and I think they mess it up, in my opinion.
I agree with his example of Horizon. So Horizon Zero Dawn, the first one, the reason it's not as blurry, because they both use TAA, right? The reason it's not as blurry is because Decima, the people that made Horizon Zero Dawn, is their initial version of TAA only used one pass frame of accumulation, which most TAAs don't do that. So it was actually it was pretty clear for TAA as far as they go. And they changed that and stuff with their latest one because they added more detail, which means more aliasing, and they wanted to reduce that. And actually, I did a test. Their first version of TAA is actually clearer than DLSS. So I would actually
Wow.
prefer using their TA over DLSS if I had to use one of
It
them.
looks great, and the performance is great too. So I bet with they want to update Horizon Zero Dawn for the PC too. I'm sure they're gonna make it worse, 100%.
Yeah. Hopefully Nixie's actually Nixie's is the one updating it, and they're like a porting studio that are fans of the FTA subreddit and stuff like that.
Yeah.
So they always provide options. So
Yeah.
them being the ones making the remaster makes me hopeful that it's
Yeah.
not just like Forbidden West copy pasted. It's actually good. So,
Yeah.
but we'll see about
I
that.
mean, the last remaster what we have seen was Until Dawn, PlayStation 5, and it I haven't played it because I just listened. I was not a big fan of the game type, let's say like this. That's why I considered not to test it, and I was right because it had less players than Concord. Actually, and people don't like it because it's just 30 FPS and it stutters, it has bugs and stuff like that. I don't know. So if you call this a remaster or remake, it was a remake actually, sorry, that's a bad shop in my opinion. I don't know. And they're asking $70-80 for this? Really?
Yeah. And talking about money, here I want to comment on this. Imagine throwing thousands of euros against a game to get a really good PC, and then it stutters. Then feel annoyed with the stutters and even small ones because you invested so much. On a PS5, I'm kind of okay with it if it stutters. That's the thing. A lot of people never stop throwing money to their PCs, trying to basically fix the stutters or whatever. But the worst thing is when you have a game that no matter what you have, it's gonna stutter.
It doesn't matter. You can buy a 6090 in the future. It will stutter.
Yeah. Really sucks.
So, what is this one here? The Matrix Tech demo on console looked so good, but I've never seen a game with this graphic. Why? I mean, there are, games, with Unreal Engine 5, they're looking great as soon you're not moving. That's what I found. Wukong is a very good example of what I found. You have in some cutscenes or whatever, or when you look closely on assets or details, they're looking very, very detailed, absolutely fantastic. But as soon you start moving, they're just blurry and checky, and it's not nice anymore.
By the way, Hybrid, can you tell us more about what you did with Wukong? Because that was a massive improvement. You did you use a different anti-aliasing. That's yours?
Yeah, well, so my mods are modular. So, well, actually, just to go back to the stutter thing for a second, I think asynchronous warp rate projection, which you guys are probably fans of, hasn't been done yet for standard rendering, desktop use. But I think that would fix stutters, because if the performance drops, it's always going up to your refresh rate. So if AMD or NVIDIA ever release that would be very interesting for how it interacts with stutters. That might be a fix. But
I believe NVIDIA is definitely, for the new GPUs, they are definitely 4x frame generation. I mean, I don't see how they don't do that, because we have so many 240 hertz monitors now, and so you get 60, you go from 60 to 240. I'm sure they're gonna do that, and probably I'm hopeful that they are going to announce something like that. AI with a synchronous reprojection or something like that, and that would be fantastic.
Frame generation without latency issues. It's really nice.
Yes. And there's a demo that I tried on my PC. I shared that. Someone did a demo with a synchronous reprojection. And you can see 30 FPS from 30 to 120. The input lag is the same as 120. And of course, the more FPS you get, the least amount of occlusion artifacts and all of that. So from 60 to 120, it's so good that, or from 60 to whatever you want, 240, 500, whatever, it's amazing. They have to. I mean, if they come out with that, I think it's going to be the biggest jump on the gaming experience for everyone, especially if you have a very high refresh rate display. But I'm sorry, I cut you off. What is that you did with Black Myth Wukong?
Yeah. And the worry with that is that since developers are using it as a crutch, currently DLSS, I worry that they're going to start targeting 30 FPS with async on like PC 4090s. It'd be horrible, but
Yes.
Oh my goodness, really?
but yeah,
Why I'm
with
buying a
Wukong-
PC then?
Yeah, exactly. I mean, it'll feel smooth at least, but it was just lots of artifacts. With Wukong, you know, I like to make my mods modular. So when I disabled TAA, I couldn't get it to look great with no anti-aliasing because the way that they render the leaves in the game are just very bad. And so I used my own anti-aliasing from Reshade to try to clean it up. But that's only if you want to play without anti-aliasing on. You can do that. Otherwise, you can just use like my tweaked like DLSS and stuff like that to get a slightly better experience than you had before.
But that looks so good, man. I tried that. The image clarity improvement is massive. The only problem is the leaves. What you're saying. So basically, I see you had a tool to remove the leaves altogether if they bother you. Of course, it's gonna break how the game looks, but
removed it.
but it
That's
looks
a good
so
thing.
good.
Mindset is a big aspect. So that's something I take into it. So like when I remove the leaves, I like to think that I'm in like a forest that burnt down or something. Like it was an artistic decision. So I don't like to, or like I had the retro thing, right, where I use like nearest neighbor scaling for one of my performance mods, and then I add like a retro filter, so people feel like it's an artistic choice rather than they're cutting corners for performance. Because there's games like that, like Lethal Company, that like look pixelated and they run at very low resolutions, but they're actually and they perform very well, but it's just their art style. So I do all sorts of things like that to boost performance, because I find that it's pretty cool.
Yes,
for some people.
So
Did the
let
same
me
thing as Traversal.
so the Narsot. I'm quite delusional. I think PlayStation 5 Pro will not solve the issue with Unreal Engine 5. No, even the PlayStation 7 will not solve it. It's not a hardware issue. That's what I think. It's an optimization issue at some point. Because again, I found better. It's people always get this wrong when I'm talking about image quality, picture quality. So when I'm talking about image quality, it's really how the image looks on my screen when I'm moving around, okay? Not how detailed a world is, okay? So you can have a very, very detailed world like in Wukong, and again, you move around, it's just blurry. This was my first impression. And it doesn't matter if you change to a highest setting on PC or lowest or whatever, it was just blurry. But then on the other hand, we have games, especially older games, where you have not the details like in other AAA games nowadays. But when you move around, it's just stable, sharp, and you can see all the details, all the very small details, of course. And it's just a better experience, in my opinion. So too much assets or too much details on the screen, what I can't see anymore when I'm moving around, it doesn't make sense to me. And that's why we talked about this. So whoever calls 30 FPS mode fidelity mode, I don't understand this. It's nothing to do with fidelity.
Yeah, absolutely. Can I ask you, Hybrid, do you have a mod for Armored Core 6? Because to fix the anti-aliasing, because the problem I have with that game is when you're not moving the camera static, it looks sharp with a lot of aliasing, and as soon as you start moving, it's like the TAA kicks in. So it's like it's not working when the camera is not moving, and that is so distracting to me.
Yeah,
and
that's even worse. It's not even doing its job, and it's still blurring everything, right?
Yes, exactly. Is there a fix for that?
Well, it depends on, like, if it's an online game, and it has like anti-cheat and it blocks Engine.ini files, there's probably not any fixes for it. But if it's like a single player game or something, and you have access to Engine.ini, then I could make a fix for that.
I think it's so needed because I actually like that game a lot, and I was playing it and I stopped because I said no, I don't. I'm like, it's so bothersome to me. Like it looks so terrible, and it doesn't matter if you use a higher resolution. Like if I tried DLSS, DLDSR 2.25x, a crazy high resolution, and you still see. I mean, it looks still a lot of shimmering if you're not moving. It's like TAA is not working when it's not moving, and then it starts working. So that difference between a static and moving picture is so distracting.
Yeah. No, I agree. So this one here, PSSR, I don't know why they use this word actually. Anyway, demonstration on Final Fantasy VII appeared most likely like, yeah, okay. The demonstration, what I saw, and I'm looking so forward to test this on my own, because again, if you watch YouTube videos, it's not the same quality at all. You can upload in the best quality whatsoever. You have no idea what YouTube is making out of your video. But I like to see this on my screen, you know, because also what I have seen already on YouTube looks like day or night difference in terms of picture sharpness. Unbelievable. And I'm looking forward if this PSSR is close to hopefully DLSS or maybe even better. I doubt that, but if it's for sure much better than FSR.
Yeah, I mean, it can be done right for sure. I am impressed with Ratchet and Clank on the PC. How good is that that TAA in comparison with no TAA? So when you turn off the anti-aliasing, the shimmering is crazy. You see that everything is super low resolution, and when you turn it on, it looks so much better in comparison. So why is that? How were they able to get it to get that? You know,
I mean, that's
shimmering
Insomniac.
fixed with
You know,
TAA.
that's the tech company, you know, in my opinion, one of the best developers. That's how it is. And I think you have a good point. So Ratchet and Clank on the PlayStation 5 is probably one of the best looking games on console or ever, you know, also on the PC, of course, now. It's just fantastic.
Yeah. And especially the hair, like how can, you know, because when we see these games with the hair looking so bad, how can they get the hair so good? Especially when you zoom in the camera, it looks unbelievably good. If the actual pixel count of the stuff is so low.
That's a good question. Maybe Hybrid can answer it.
So the hair looks bad because, I mean, hair didn't always look bad in games. There's like a they're using different shaders for hair. That's actually was made for TAA. That's not like complete, but when TAA blends it together, it looks more detailed. There's someone I know actually fixed Unreal Engine's hair shader and made it look better and also temporally independent. I can't find their YouTube video because it's small. I looked it up. That's why I was quiet. But I feature it in one of my videos that I'll link the timestamp to it. You guys can take a look at it.
I see what you're saying. Yeah, like in Red Dead, when you turn off TAA, the trees are like incomplete. Like they need that to blend together with the TAA, with the accumulation of frames to complete.
It's just a shader they're using on the hair. Their technique for it. It can be fixed, and I feel like especially for public game engines that knows that developers are going to be using their engine for different types of games and projects, they really should have a method for everything. You know, they shouldn't make everything temporally dependent. You know, they should definitely have alternatives to that because, you know, they don't even need to invent their own techniques. Like these are public techniques that are allowed to be used by anyone, and they're not even adding it. You know, you have to add it yourself basically, and it's dumb. But yeah, it's just a simple. It is something you can do easily yourself because it's just something you can do using Unreal Engine blueprints, which any developer knows how to do. So here's the full.
Okay, let me move on to this question here. What are your thoughts about the trend of release it now, fix it later? That has been happening in the last few years. It's not good, but we let it happen. We pre-ordering games, we buying games on the release day. And I know it's hard to say no. But yeah, I don't like it.
Yeah, I mean, it makes pointless to own like a physical copy of a game and feel like you actually have the game, because if let's say you buy the final product and this is mine, it works perfect, I don't need internet connection or nothing, I'm just gonna put it on my PS5 and it's gonna work. If you need updates so that actually can be good, then like you have nothing, like you depend on them fixing it later, so then you don't have the game right now. That's not the final product. So you're buying something that's not the final the final product.
That's a very good point. Some games really need 5, 6, 7 patches to make it actually playable because of all the bugs. I'm not even talking about picture improvement or performance improvement, about the bugs, what they find. And I think it's getting worse. I mean, I started playing games where we had a bloody Commodore 64 on Nintendo. There was a cartridge. There was no internet. There was no internet. The game had to be perfectly. And we had games, of course, that were buggy and whatever, and it was not working at some point, and you can make it crash and something like that. But in general, the quality back then was much, much better. Much, much better.
Yeah.
Because it was not easy to fix. That's how it is,
Yeah, that was the game. Like the game you bought, that was it. That's it.
Yeah.
Nothing else.
So what do you guys think about Halo ditching the slip space engine and going to use Unreal Engine 5 going forward? I don't know if this is a good idea. I don't know what was wrong with what was wrong with the old engine. What is wrong? This is a first-person shooter, which living from fast-paced actions. You don't want to have any stuttering in this game, not at all. I don't know.
It got taken into a very bad direction. So, like Bungie, the former makers of Halo, they use their own engine still on Destiny. It looks and works perfectly fine.
Absolutely.
But Halo Infinite, due to them hiring contractors that would like barely learn the engine before they quit it and move on, the engine just got into a garbled mess. Like adding a UI element took a ton of work, and the game, honestly, in many ways, it looks worse than Unreal Engine 5 because the TAA is even extra blurry in motion. Like it removes almost all detail. So to me, and also it performs, even if in like a small 6v6 map, for my performance test, it performs the same as like Cyberpunk does. So the performance is bad too. So it doesn't make a difference to me, really. I think the Halo engine was a beautiful and amazing engine, but if this is the current version of the engine that we will get for our next game, then it's probably a good decision. But yeah, I wish they never ruined the engine because I used to love it a lot.
Yeah, basically you're saying it might be good because what they had with Halo Infinite was terrible. But what it hurts to me is the Witcher 3 and the CD Projekt Red eliminating that Red engine from Cyberpunk to move to Unreal. The only reason I can think of that makes sense for them is because they lost the developers that know how to work with that Red engine. Otherwise, why would you do that? That engine looks fine in comparison with Unreal. It might be even better. Cyberpunk doesn't have a lot of stutters.
Yeah, Halo Infinite went through like multiple like engine leads, I'm pretty sure, and that causes people that don't know how to fully utilize the engine. It requires like a little bit of like experimenting, reverse engineering, and it's just like you don't have to pay the fee for paying for an engine, right? When you make your own. But at the same time, if you have this problem and you're not properly documenting stuff, or you're hiring contractors, it's going to get to a point where it's more cost prohibitive to use that engine than just to pay the fee. So from their standpoint, this is a great thing because Halo games would take like 6 years to release now, and it's kind of crazy. So they can release more games more fast and expand the Halo universe. So it's probably a good thing.
It's easier. Yeah. Hopefully, maybe they're optimizing their engine because they can do this as well. Maybe they're optimizing their engine, and at the end, it's actually a win-win. Let's see.
Now, what I don't know, why would they try to, like, they made this video, Halo. They made this video like hyping up, like we should be excited because now they moved to Unreal Engine and the graphics and this and that. Who is gonna get excited?
Everybody was like,
like right now,
because we have so many bad examples from Unreal Engine. That's the thing. That's the thing. So I mean, I'm not even excited about a new Halo game because the last Infinity was not that great. You know what I mean? So they need to come back to their old roots anyway, make it good. But let me just quickly come to this comment here. That CNN-like bar at the bottom is going to burn in my OLED screen. So first of all, no, it will not. And second of all, how to remove this bar is with a super chat. Okay, so thank you very much. No, but no worries. It will not burn in anything. Okay, just because this is now 1 hour on your screen. Not at all. Believe me, no. Anyway, I'm just joking. I know you're just joking. That's why. Anyway, doesn't Fortnite have shader compilation stutter? I mean, I played this
Yeah.
game, but this game runs absolutely smooth, or is it
Yeah,
just...
but the first time you open it, it's a mess. Like, yeah, it does. Like, if you install
oh.
Fortnite for the first time, or
Yeah,
you
yeah, but this is...
reinstall the drivers.
But this is what we need to understand, of course. So the game starts the first time, detects your engine, and then can start to compile the shaders. So that's how it works. And after that, when this is done, it runs, in my opinion, I have no problem. So even on the PlayStation or Xbox or whatever, 60 FPS mode is just wow, absolutely wow. There's not a single stuttering, in my opinion.
Yeah.
What else do we have? We have so many comments, and I actually lost a little bit focus because I was listening to Hybrid, actually, because it's very interesting what he's saying. And it's very hard for me to follow sometimes because it's very high technical, but that's absolutely fine.
Yeah, Taylor Steve says the animation stutter in Silent Hill 2 is also pretty crazy to me. Digital Foundry showcased the issue, and I don't remember the last time a game had an issue like that. Yeah, Jedi Fallen Survivor has that issue with the animation. So basically, even if the FPS is rock solid, the frame time, everything is perfect, it's still the animation looks stuttery. Yeah, that's really bad because basically there's no way you can see fluidity at all.
The reason it's so stuttery is because I don't know why games do this, but they made the animations at a specific frame rate, and it's locked to that frame rate. So when you go into an animation, it changes your FPS to 30. But if you use like a cutscene FPS unlocker, like one of those mods, and you boost the FPS, the background's at like 100 FPS, but then like the animations are still at like 25 or whatever they're rendering at. But it's a really low frame rate, and that's why it's stuttery. So that's on them. It's the same as
Resident Evil games, huh? Is it the same? So, or it's different? So, because I think in the background, or when you're far away from enemies or whatever, they're rendering with a very low FPS, and you can see this. And the further you come, or the closer you come, it's actually getting better. Or is it the same, or is this always bad? I mean, I found it okay in Silent Hill 2.
It's always it's only happening in cutscenes. Like the characters in cutscenes are rendering at a lower frame rate, like their animations. That's what I mean.
Okay, I found this. Yeah, this was cutscenes.
Yeah, I mean that's another thing. I've seen games where some effects or like the grass movement or something is at a lower frame rate, like half of the frame rate, and it is so distracting. And I don't think they should do that at all, because if you're getting 100 frames, 120, it should be 120 frames everything, not having something that's a very low frame rate. It looks distracting. Or the fire. Sometimes, I don't remember which game it was, the fire was like 30 FPS or something. So then when you have fire everywhere, it gives you like a obnoxious feeling. Yeah, I don't think they should do that to get more performance.
Yeah, it's things that are jarring are really bad. So that's one of the reasons why TA can be bad, because you go from clear to blurry, and then you go from high frame rate to low frame rate with these animations. Like the biggest aspect of image quality, in my opinion, that's very underrated, is consistency. Like I would rather have a game that looks a little worse in certain areas, but it's consistently, like it looks that way consistently. Like, for example, like, TA blurs in motion. Like that blur looks bad, but I'd rather have it look that way all the time instead of having it randomly happen, because it just is so distracting. Because at least then you could apply sharpening to it and it would actually work. Because the reason you can't do that normally is because then you're over sharpening the static image. Like you have to sharpen for two different images. The only way you could do that is with like a dynamic sharpener that gets more sharp in motion or something.
Yeah, that's what I'm complaining about with Armored Core. You cannot fix it because it looks so different, the static, than in motion. Red Dead Redemption with the old DLSS version had that issue. In motion, it looked sharp, and then with static, it looked blurry. But yeah, if you update the DLSS, then it fixes that. But let me ask you, Hybrid, can you tell us like where we can go? You had a website, you have some resources, so we can learn how to fix ourselves, at least the Unreal Engine games that have the Engine.ini file. Like, what are those commands that we can use? Basically, those extra settings that we can change at the engine level to fix the blurriness and remove all those post-processing effects that looks bad, like chromatic aberration, all that. How can we learn about that?
Yeah, so I'm gonna send 3 links. So one of them is just the link to the site where you can look up every command, and it will give you like a rundown of what the command does and all that stuff. And then I'm gonna give 2 links that are more condensed and just shows you some commands. So there they are. So the first one is the one for the website. The second one is the best anti-aliasing values and things to improve anti-aliasing. The third one is for upscaling.
Let's see if we can have those links on the description of this live stream.
I will put them all. What you put in the private chats, I will put them all in the description. It's a lot.
Yeah,
and
also, if you guys like using DLSS, I did do like a comparison of every DLSS preset, so everyone can see the difference. So I went at native resolution and I compared every preset in motion versus stationary, and then while upscaling. I found some interesting things, like for example, preset F, which no one talks about or uses, it has the least difference between motion and stationary. So preset F.
Sorry, what you're talking about, before you continue, what you're talking about is the DLSS tweaks. That we can use it with what's the name of this NVIDIA Profile Inspector. We have a drop down box that has preset A, B, C. Is that what you're talking about?
Yeah, you can also edit it through Unreal Engine. There's console commands to edit the DLSS presets. But yeah, preset F is it's actually the blurriest in stationary, but it has the least difference between it and the motion, so it's the most consistent. So we're just speaking about that, so I thought I might share that. And also, I have I forked DLSS Tweaks. DLSS Enhancer is what it's called. I'll leave that link too if anyone wants to use it.
And do you have a list of each one of those F, A, B? Like what's the difference between those?
Yeah, I rate them all too. So in this list, I rate them by ghosting, stability, consistency, and clearness and reconstruction. And
nice.
then I have image comparisons where you can click on the images and drag like a slider across. So you get to determine it for yourself.
Nice.
Very good. I have to check this out. This sounds like a lot of work, what you put in here.
Yeah, I mean, we have to become a half developer to play the games now to clear. Like we have to change settings a lot.
That's the problem. And I don't want to do this actually. But yeah. Anyway, let's move on. Dragon Ball Sparking Zero HD. I'm getting so many comments about this game. Is this really a thing? Dragon Ball, really? I
have the game. I'm gonna install it and see how it looks
on the
like.
PC.
Yeah.
Okay, no worries. Okay, I'm not aware of any Dragon Ball, and I'm not aware that this is actually such a big thing, But people, that yeah, go ahead.
I was gonna say talking about HDR, the Silent Hill 2 remake HDR was really bad. I mean,
it's I try
to
avoid
a horror game.
Words like that now in future. But
I mean, when I opened that for the first time, I was like, "There's no way the developers opened this game with an OLED screen. No way, because it looks so terrible." It's a horror game. Horror game is all about darkness and having good contrast and perfect blacks. That thing looks washed out. It's a mess.
Anyway, but I'm not sure if I'm looking into Dragon Ball Sparking Zero. Maybe I'll text you later on about this game, and we talk about this in more details. Speaking about blur in Unreal Engine 5, I always disable in config.ini chromatic aberration, lens distortion. That's bloody words for me. Motion blur, film grain, and sometimes even depth of field. Is this something what you can recommend, or is this possible in all Unreal Engine 5 games?
Well, these effects are preference based, and the developers add them for artistic purposes. So it depends on if you want to experience the game the way the developer intended or not. I typically disable them too because they don't look great, especially chromatic aberration. It's really
terrible.
it's the worst out of all these. I mean, motion blur. I don't
So-
like motion blur, but I can understand its appeal. It makes
Let me
motion look
just ask
smoother.
you, what is chromatic aberration actually? What is the point about this?
It's
So what do we have in real life? What is looking like that?
it imitates like cameras color fringing and stuff, and it makes it look more photo real, I guess, like a video.
So it basically imitates a defect that cameras have.
Yeah.
That sounds
So
like a
film
terrible
grain.
idea. Why would you imitate a defect from
That's
a
what all
movie?
these things do. Like film grain, like back when things were filmed on film, like
Yeah.
filmmakers try imitating that. Motion blur.
Don't get me wrong, I can understand film grain to have a little bit of we have a old looking atmosphere, something like that. I can understand this, but not the whole time for the game. But lens distortion is also bad. Motion blur, object motion blur is actually not too bad sometimes, I find, but full screen motion blur is terrible. I don't know why you add more blur, why you want to see less details actually.
Yeah, Armored Core 6 also had chromatic aberration. No, and the thing is, some of these games don't let you turn it off unless you go to the config file and do all of that. So these modifications that Chris D here is talking about, that's the usual stuff that I've done before. You copy to eliminate those. You go to the engine on file on Real Engine. You go there and you add some codes. There, you copy and paste that from a mod list or something. But what I was asking Hybrid is basically he has a lot more than that. Like he added to mod Silent Hill 2 remake. There's a huge list of things that he changed. So what I was asking him is like, how can we learn what each of those do and when to use them or how to tweak them to improve even more?
Probably it's called experience.
So with just going back to motion blur, is I don't like world motion blur either, the full screen, but I am actually working on something, or I stopped, but I'll pick it back up. Is I was seeing if motion blur could help with TAA. So because motion blur obviously hides TAA's artifacts. So what I was trying to do an experiment in Unreal where because you can adjust the strength of motion. That's one reason world motion blur sucks, is because they don't let you adjust the strength of it, and it's just way too strong in my opinion by default.
Games,
I was trying to make it equal to how much TAA blurs, so you're getting the same amount of blur, but it's a more pleasant looking blur to look at, and that was like what I wanted to do. So I'm going to look into that still.
Yeah, so you're saying basically to blend together, like if you see a triple image, blend them together so you don't see three things ghosting in the back. You just see a blur.
It can help with ghosting, and because the thing about TAA motion blur and normal motion blur is I don't like either of them because I don't like motion blur at all. But TAA's motion blur looks a lot worse, and the reason why is because it's not what TAA motion blur looks like is just like whenever you look in motion, it's like the whole image just loses like a ton of resolution. Like that's how the blur looks. Like everything just loses detail. Whereas actual motion blur looks like Gaussian motion blur. Like it looks like a blur filter, and that's much better than just looking like, all right, your resolution has been cut in half randomly. It's very ugly looking. So that's why I wanted to try to do this fix. I also forgot what your question was actually now.
What I was asking is how can we learn what all those command lines that you modify, how can we learn, okay, what is each one of them and when to use them, how to use them? Like if there's a documentation for that.
So there's two things that you can do is I have a subreddit called Engine.ini, oddly enough, that's the name of the subreddit. And I have posts there breaking down like what commands do and its correct value ranges. But what you can also do, if it's not on that area or you just want to, is you can go to my website where I have all the commands, copy and paste a command from my listing, and paste it into that website in the search bar, and it'll pop up telling you what it does. And you can, read its definition and then tweak it, based
So
on
your website is the first link, or where's your website here in this?
xhybrid.github.io.
Perfect. I will put this later on all in the
Yeah,
description.
and there's other websites like that, but they typically use earlier versions of Unreal. I upload the latest versions.
So one more question before we move to the next comment. So all those effects what are mentioned here right now, are they all affecting performance, or maybe not, or can affect?
They can. I mean, if they didn't, there wouldn't be quality levels. Like they have quality
yeah,
level sliders in
makes
Unreal.
sense.
Like motion blur goes up to 4 or 5. The performance impact isn't large though. Typically, like you might see a 4% improvement disabling all of them.
And
Okay,
where is the performance improvement from your mod? Where is that coming from? From the mod for Silent Hill 2.
Remember the view distance thing I was talking? I think I talked about it off stream actually with you in private, but I can mention it now since we're streaming. That is that so the game has a lot of fog, and I was curious about the view distance because most developers just leave it the same at 1.0, So I was like, all right, they probably did that, so let me just test it, and they did. So I just lowered it a little bit, and then when it started creeping past the fog, I stopped. So I'm basically not rendering in things you can't see.
I see.
Yeah.
Yeah, because you're saying, oh, there's so much fog. Why would you be rendering something you cannot even see because of that fog?
Exactly.
Yeah. This is wow. Okay.
And this game should not be performing that badly because when you think about how the game is just like kind of a walking simulator and like the fog's so close to the camera, why is the game performing this bad? You don't need to render that much on the screen at once, but it does, but it still performs bad.
So how much was the performance improvement in FPS or whatever?
Well, I reduced it from 1.0 to 0.75, which wasn't a lot, and that resulted in like the majority of like 6% uplift. Which is decent, but not major.
Yeah. This one is for you. Hey guys, thanks for your work. Hybrid, can we use the Proton shader caging to avoid shader compilation stutter not only on Steam Deck but on other Windows-based PCs?
If you can, I think you have to use Linux to do it. But I mean, if there's a way to get Proton working on Windows, then probably. But I'm not sure how Proton would interact with Windows, where it would store the cache at on Windows. But maybe you would have to look into that.
Well, then someone should do a Proton version of for Windows if it's possible.
Yeah, I guess so. I don't think Valve will do that. They really want Linux to become viable. They're focusing all their bags on that, which would be cool.
And let me ask you, what if we don't have available on the game, on the Unreal Engine game, what if we don't have available that Engine.ini? Like, for example, on Jedi Survivor, it was not there. The file was not there, but we do have a settings file. Can we use some of those commands there, or is there an alternative way to improve things if the Unreal Engine game doesn't have that?
You can't. So every file, actually, I actually discussed this a little bit on my Engine.ini subreddit. So each file has its own things that you can do. So like sometimes Unreal Engine games will ship like 20 files, like input ini, game user settings ini. So yes. Game user settings ini, you can't really use any of those Unreal Engine commands there, most of them. But there are some settings that obviously go under that thing, like some FPS limiting options and stuff like that. But like the traditional commands you would use, no, they don't work there. What you would need to do is use something like Unreal Engine. What's it called? I have it on my PC, so let me look. It's called Unreal Pack. You would need to use like Unreal Pack and F model. So you would use F model, and you would go into the game's files, pack files, and you would open up its pack file, and then you would extract it, and then you would edit the Engine.ini of that file, and then you'd go to Unreal Pack, and then you would re-zip it in the format of a pack file. Then you would put it in the game, and it will save all your Engine.ini tweaks, basically.
Oh, so you're saying there's something inside the game installation folder that we have to unzip, so the game actually creates that Engine.ini file.
It doesn't create the file. The file exists inside the game, and you're just basically editing the internal like Engine.ini file, I guess you could say.
Yeah, I think we need a video about that. Hybrid, you should make a video about that.
It is a little advanced. But it's not too hard once you know how to do it. The problem is that if it's encoded and you have to decrypt the file, because some developers will do that, then that's when it gets hard because you have to decrypt it, which isn't easy, or you would need to find decryption codes online.
Well, can you find an example of a game where it is not encrypted that you can actually do that? Maybe Jedi Survivor.
Most single player games don't encrypt it. So like I wanted to modify I wanted to check Fortnite's files. I had to get a code to decrypt their files to see what values they use, because I think Fortnite's TSR is probably one of the best implementations of TSR. So I wanted to see what values they were using for it. And I also spoke with the creator of Unreal Engine 5 about Fortnite, and he told me some stuff about it. So I learned a couple things. And I also, one of the things I do on my Engine.ini subreddit is I actually take the Engine.ini files of video games, the internal ones, and I upload them just so people can see what the default values the developers are using. So I have that uploaded for a couple games.
So basically, if we like how a specific game looks, then we can copy those values to make another game look like that.
Yeah, it's useful for developers that want to learn things, and it's also useful for gamers who want to look around. Like you might type in, I don't know, current frame weight or something to see what their frame weighting was. Maybe it's default. Maybe they changed it. Like I know you liked Bright Memory Infinite, right? You like that game?
Yeah.
I when you said they had really good TA, I ended up I ended up getting their files because I was curious what they were doing, and I took a look, and yeah, that's something I did because of your recommendation. So I learned from that.
So in general, so Unreal Engine 5, I mean, it's how does it work actually? Everybody can use it, but there's a fee to pay probably or something like that. Or how does it is? Where you have to pay for assets, or what's the deal behind this?
It's free to use. You don't have to pay any upfront fee, and you can actually publish it and not pay anything. You only have to pay if a game gets a certain amount of sales, or like, you know. So like if you get like 1 million copies sold, they start charging you or whatever. So if you're an indie developer who probably won't have a viral game, you could use Unreal Engine for free. And technically, you're not really paying for it. They're just taking a cut of the money you make, which is different than just giving the money that you have up front.
Okay. That's
yeah,
good.
I mean, the idea of Unreal Engine is great. And I think we have more games thanks to Unreal Engine. We just need we just need it to be better. And it could be better if they think if they go on a different direction, or I think they should stop trying to make a commercial out of it, and look how many shadows and stuff, and then it's a stuttering, it has ghosting. So focus on making it actually better than trying to sell it. It's free. They don't even have to sell the engine too much.
So Mr. Walker is writing console games that uses FSR. So in general, everything what uses FSR is not looking good in my opinion. Hopefully PSSR can help with this and pull in line with DLSS. I mean, again, I did a video back then. This was before FSR 3, and I compared FSR with DLSS, and there was a clear winner. DLSS is so much better in motion. There's not even, it's like a day and night difference. I hope that Sony's technology can be in line with DLSS, but what we need to understand is, if they're not updating their game, if they're not changing the upscaler and stuff like that in the game, you can buy PlayStation 7. It will not change anything.
Yeah, I agree.
I heard so like sometimes consoles get access to like technology a little earlier. Like their ray tracing performance is pretty improved because they're using new stuff. So I heard that PSSR is sort of like a prototype for FSR4, like a tweaked version of that. Because you know that AMD is releasing FSR4, which is going to be they're upscaling but with AI involved. So yeah, FSR4 will probably look very similar to PSSR. So if PSSR looks good in motion, then I mean similar
Then
DLSS
FSR4 as well. Yeah.
Yeah, basically.
Hey, Hybrid, and I cannot let you go without asking you about lossless scaling. Why is it possible to make it work with RTX HDR? A lot of people ask me about that. I tried, and there's no way I could make it work.
Yeah, some members are reporting they can make it work using these like janky techniques that aren't necessarily user friendly, but the the problem is that like lossless scaling just depends on Windows capture service, and we can't really modify or change how Windows capture service works. We have to like use what Microsoft gives us, and also in the most recent version of Windows 11, they actually completely changed how the capture service worked, and they actually broke the frame pacing of lossless scaling, and we have to try to like remake that and work with it. So it really sucks, but so there's certain things we can't do without Windows changing things, unfortunately. And right now we're working on fixing what Microsoft broke with DXGI and stuff.
I see, but the problem I see, and I tried those workarounds that you share with me, it doesn't work because I believe we have HDR on top of HDR. So lossless scaling, when you turn on RTX HDR on the NVIDIA control panel, it would be on in lossless scaling and also on the game, like 2 times. So there's no way to have it just for lossless scaling and not for the game. So that's why it seems like it's working, but it looks very bad because I think it's HDR on top of HDR. But maybe the issue is different. But I think if we had a way to just do it for one,
that is the issue. You would need to find a way to disable it for one of them if that's possible.
Okay.
But the problem is that I would definitely try to look for a workaround. But the thing is the only like HDR / OLED display I have is my phone. I've never owned like an OLED like TV or monitor before. I have an IPS monitor, so like I would love to make mods and stuff for like fixing HDR in games, but since I don't have an HDR capable display, that's difficult for me to do.
I see.
That's fine. That just don't start. I'm fine with that. Leave it to me.
Yeah,
no worries.
I heard HDR looks really good.
Yeah, sometimes the problem with my settings. Sometimes I can't. I just have 3 screens or monitors to compare. Sometimes we have so many different monitors out there, and you don't know what the settings are, what people are using. But most of the time they're looking fine. Yeah, no worries. So this one is also for you. Any insights on? And I think that's one of the last questions we're going to answer, and then we wrap it up. Any insights on Capcom's RE or Resident Evil engine, maybe compared to Unreal Engine 4 or 5?
Yeah, so I don't know a lot about their engine because it's closed source and I've never worked on it. I guess some people know about it, like the Resident Evil modders that use like RE Unlocker and stuff, and they work with that. They probably reverse engineer parts of it and understand it, but I don't. But one thing I could say about the RE engine that I like is I read one of their GDC papers and I liked what they were doing. They actually copied one of Valve's methods. I don't think it was for Resident Evil though, but it was for the RE engine, and I liked that a lot. And also their interlacing method, I like that a lot too, because the thing about interlacing is, like, obviously most upscalers these days are using temporal accumulation to reconstruct the image, whereas spatial upscalers like FSR1, they're not really reconstructing anything. Like, the goal of spatial upscalers is just to make that internal resolution not have the like non-native blur on your display, like when you aren't using the correct resolution. Like, it's not supposed to reconstruct stuff, so it's not supposed to look like your actual native resolutions. That's like a misconception people have. They're expecting FSR1. If you go from 1080p to 1440p, it looks like 1440p. It's supposed to make 1080p look good on your display because they can't reconstruct detail. But I find interlacing is the best at preserving detail. Like, it creates a little more jaggies on certain objects, of course, because it's cutting one of the resolutions in half, but it's the most compelling. It looks a lot better in FSR1 in their games, and I would like it if more games had that, especially if they have non-TAA options.
So let me ask you, interlacing is if you set it to 4K, then you have 1080p vertically?
Yeah, it would be like you half the vertical resolution and you keep the horizontal resolution the same.
Oh, okay. Oh, I see.
So you're only lowering the resolution on one axis.
Okay. So you don't get a lot of a staircase effect by doing that?
You get them on some objects, but it's not really that noticeable, especially at normal viewing distances. I mean, if you're already playing at a low resolution, I can imagine like playing at 1080p maybe, but at 1440p and above, it looks fine to me.
Okay, nice.
That's interesting. I think this was in general absolutely fantastic stream, and I learned a lot, and I forgot half of them already because it was so much actually. But this was really good having you, and maybe we should do this probably more often to have experts like Hybrid on the channel, because that's what we need. We need to learn stuff. We need to understand actually why things are happening, and not just to complain about, just to understand the background, to maybe get an idea why some things are like they are.
Yeah, I'll try to see. You guys wanted to have more experts on. I'll try to see if Threat Interactive would come on. He's pretty knowledgeable.
Would be fantastic. I would much appreciate that.
Yeah, I'll ask him about it. See what he says.
Perfect. You're happy to join again, of course. No worries.
They don't have any problems with that. It's always fun.
Nice. Yeah. I mean, we are coming from a place of just trying to learn, figure it out, and not just complaining, oh, it sucks. So try to offer a solution, because we have a platform. And yes, I do like to complain, because if I don't like something, I'm going to I want to say it, hoping that it's gonna make a difference. Although the channel is not big enough for that, but I do what I can. But I want to mainly focus on learning and trying to offer a solution.
Absolutely.
Yeah, and it's important not to spread like any sort of misinformation when ranting or complaining, because then you might be looked at as like a joke, or developers might scoff at you. So it's nice you would have experts on and ask questions with genuine inquiry, because that helps the world, when you're spreading awareness.
Yeah, and I think this was the stream about, not just complaining, really to going a little bit more in deep to understand what's going on.
And the thing is, sometimes consumers don't know exactly why it looks bad, but if it looks bad to them, it's bad. It doesn't matter if they know why or not. Digital Foundry is very good at explaining exactly what's going on, but not everyone has that level of knowledge, and that's okay. If it doesn't look good to me, it's not good.
Yeah. I told you on email or in the comments, I think, I'm not sure, but my TA video that has like almost 1 million views now, it'll hit 1 million probably next month. Most comments didn't know what TA was, but they knew what it was in terms of like how it was affecting image quality. They're like, oh my goodness, I literally thought my eyesight was going worse. It's actually just a part of the game. Like, I thought I was going crazy. Like I would say like 80% of my comments is that, because my video went viral, so it reached like average people that don't know about this. And most people, they don't like it, but they don't know what it is, and they don't know what it is. Yeah. They think it's themselves most of the time. Yeah,
because they were used to playing games in the past that maybe didn't look this blurry. They look, were clearer, or CRTs even maybe.
Yeah. Exactly.
Okay. Cool. Now, again, this was really fantastic. And so any last comments, any last wishes? No, we're all happy? No, not happy.
Let's just do it again. Maybe have someone else with Hybrid. If you have a friend that's a developer, or someone else wants to come in, absolutely.
Yeah, I'll invite them all on. And if anyone wants to, fix their own issues instead of waiting for me to make a mod for a game I might not have even heard of before, then you can look at the links I've sent and check them out. They're all pretty useful.
Nice.
Yeah, no worries. Okay, thank you very much again, Hybrid. And yeah, thank you very much to all of our viewers. Great comments, great stream as always. And I think we see you next time.
Take care.
You too.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Peace out.